go as long as you put into it what is required for you to get back out of the education, what you need to be a successful physician. But the curricula are a little bit different, and I would say that the difference in the perhaps two schools, aside from the testing, is much more of knowing you as a whole person. You can't, it's kind of like why I'm not doing a PowerPoint tonight and you're sitting in the audience and that's how I do it. I'm trying to develop it personally. I know you at USC, you can't get by me. Now that could be a bad thing, or it could be a good thing. It's your call. But my point is that we look at each individual student individually and really work to maximize their potential. Second question.
And what types of majors do you guys like to see? I know you said you can major in anything, but what is the more commonly accepted?
More common by far and away is biology. If you look at the numbers, it's biology.
But is that almost too typical?
I beg your pardon?
Is it almost too typical to be a biology major, or is that more acceptable?
Well, that's a good question because we like difference. Yeah. Cultural diversity, very big nowadays. The AAMC is looking at students coming in with abilities to speak foreign languages. Having this diverse class so that there's lack of cloning, if you will, in terms of there's one way, only one way to be a physician, because they know that you're caring for people that are not just one type. So it's a conglomeration of different types of people, so they're really pushing cultural diversity and abilities to have different experiences in life. So as part of the answer to the question, it would be kind of interesting to have different kinds of majors. I will never forget, I've been doing this is my 32nd year to do this, so I've been doing it a long time. I've taught every student that's ever graduated from the med school there. And one of the girls who was #1 in the class was a Parks and Recreation major from Clemson. And she's a radiologist now in Darlington Heart School somewhere, and she was #1 in the class. Yeah. So, different strokes for different folks. So there is no exact way, but if I had to tell you, by far and away, biology is the #1 that is chosen to major in. And that may have to do with you can have a little more coursework that you're going to get on that MCAT that to be more successful in that venue. I mean, were you a biology major?
Yes.
There you go. Does that answer your question? Okay.
I got 80 credits in my biology class. Should I retake that in college, or will that hurt my PhD?
That's fine. You're looking for, yeah.
Are students with children at a disadvantage compared to ones that aren't?
No. Let me answer that question. Without question, no. We don't age discriminate. You're not able to ask your sexual orientation. We're not able to ask where you applied to medical school, and we're not able to ask your family personal situation, okay? Now, having said that, depending on how the interview went, i.e. did you write about that in your statement, there is a place you have to put dependents in there. So that information may be known, okay? But you can choose to leave it blank if you want. My question in that regard is back to you. Okay, what's your support plan? Because I'm a pediatrician. Guess who I think should come first? The child. But in the same token, I have my responsibility to you to help you be a successful physician. You're going to be paying me $26,000 a year to go to med school. I'm going to be sure you get your money's worth. Okay? To be successful, therefore, with a child, I'm going to want to know, what is your backup plan? You've got a biochemistry test at 8 o'clock the next morning. Your child wakes up at 2 a.m. with 104 temp. What is your plan? And you go, I don't know how to plan. Not a good answer. You see? Not because I'm trying to be mean and ugly, but how are you going to handle it? You got your child, you got biochemistry. How are you going to be successful? So that's the kind of, if you want to call it a disadvantage, it's just that question will come to you maybe. It's not going to come to somebody who doesn't have a child. So that would be the difference, but there's no discrimination in that regard. We're more than happy to have mothers and fathers and, people with experience. And, if you look at the average age, traditionally you come out of college, 22, so you would think maybe the average age is about 22. It's about 24.8, 25. So obviously these people have been out, have had different venues, just interviewed somebody the other day that was 42 or something, and, and we wouldn't have offered them an interview if we didn't think they were worthy to be accepted. Now, whether she got accepted or not, I don't know at this point. But We don't want to waste your time, and we don't want to waste our time. So if you get to the interview, that means you're acceptable.
I just want to add one thing to that too, because a similar question that we get is, if I don't get into medical school right away, or I'm choose something else because I'm not sure that I want to go to medical school, and I choose to go in nursing, or I choose to get a master's in public health and then I want to go to medical school, is that a disadvantage? Or if I choose to work in a lab or get a master's in hospital administration and then I want to go to medical school, is that a disadvantage? And it's neither a disadvantage in age or any other preparation. As long as you've taken the core classes, honestly, we think that a lot of second career people have an added maturity that sometimes kids that have just come straight out of college and apply don't have. They have a little bit more worldliness. So we certainly don't see any of these special situations as a disadvantage. It's just that we want to know that you're prepared to cope with what's going to happen in med school.
Jeremy, you want to comment?
Yeah, I wanted to add, just in our class, my class of 84 students, we have a 40-year-old who owned his own business, built his own airplanes or something, so we got that. He's got 3 kids. We got another guy with 3 kids. We have a mother who is probably one of the strongest women I know, who has a child with some type of lysosomal storage disease. Maybe Gaucher's, if you heard about her, you know. Okay, and if you don't know anything about that disease, requires constant care for the child, and yet she's at everything. She's president of several organizations, and her involvement is incredible, and she does well in classes. So that's not just having a child, that's having a child with an incredible amount of needs, and still she goes out of her way. So, you know,
She has a support system.
well, yes, but I'm just saying that plus an increased amount of demands.
Right.
And we have someone who's pregnant right now in our class. We have someone who had a child during first semester, first year, which, by the way, she must be absolutely crazy, but she did it. She had the child during finals and passed finals. God bless her soul. Her husband must have suffered seriously. But the point is, any type of situation can be handled if, like Dr. Stahl was saying, you have the support system. So it's not just single guys or girls that make it through medical school. As a matter of fact, the single ones probably go crazy without somebody to take care of them.
Okay. Another question. Gary.
Yes, sir. I think you kind of hit on this before, but
Okay.
if you're from out of state, does my affiliation with Clemson increase my chances of getting into USC?
Yes.
Is there any specific reason for that other than being
Um,
affiliated with the state?
Yeah, if you really want the long story, but I'll try to make it short, obviously, for the group. The real essence behind this whole process, you have to understand how much the state is supporting you, or at least used to support you, in terms of the monies for education. So their thought is, I'm trying to give money for someone who's actually going to stay in the state and serve the constituents of the state for their medical care. So their logic is that if you were out of state, but if you went to school here, you have a better chance of staying here than somebody from California who's interviewing with you just to get in med school, who has no connection to state, who will then more than likely get their degree and leave and go back to California. So that's behind it. That's the science, if you will, behind that statement. Now, you have to understand, you have no requirement to stay in the state. And a lot of people leave the state for their residencies. Many come back. Many go in their residency and decide that's where they want to live. So this is America. I mean, you do have that freedom here. But if you're betting, which is what they're doing, they're paying the coffers here. They're trying to increase their return as best that they can. So that's got it. Do you have a question? Just a call. I got something for that. Okay. Another area. Any questions you need to ask us? Any areas we need to comment on?
I like Jeremy to share what additional courses he recommends that the students should take other than science courses. Maybe we talked about that at dinner, so we'll share that.
You know, couple things actually. One thing I mentioned at dinner was I wish I had taken a statistics course because I didn't realize how much of a role statistics played in day-to-day practice of medicine. I guess I'm just now starting to find that out. I kind of blew it off first year when it kept getting mentioned in ICM. I thought, oh, that's just something I gotta kind of hear about so I can read research papers or whatever. And here it came up in lecture again today, talking about diagnostic tests and interpreting those. And well, guess I'm gonna need that. And then they said, well, it's gonna be on boards too. So, and it's stuff I'm really bad with, and I wish now that it had been something I'd taken in undergrad, not because I would remember it all now, but because it'd be easier now to learn, because I've never been a math person, and so trying to teach myself statistical concepts, which aren't all that hard, you know, while I'm trying to learn pathology and memorize, you know, 100-something drugs for a test on Friday, you know, stuff like that, it gets more intense than it ought to be. So if I had that foundation, like we were talking about earlier with the safety net, it would have been nice. Another thing that I wish I had done, and I might regret even more in the future, is taking some business classes. If it doesn't help me out, you know, in my practice of medicine, because I guess private practice is more of a thing of the past now, or becoming a thing of the past, I'd like to have had it for my personal life. I got so bogged down in what's going to get me into medical school, science, you know. I get tunnel vision. I set a goal in 7th grade. I became a nerd, and I wanted to be a doctor. And to an extent, that was a good thing, and to an extent, that was a bad thing. And I missed out on some things I should have done. And if I'd taken some business classes, it might have benefited me down the road. I may suffer from that. So if you have the time, do it. Minor in it.
On the web also, please access the web. A lot of information is there. We have a day in the life of a med student where you can call and come down and spend a day with a student. And we would generally pair you with a Clemson student just because you would have that kind of commonality. So you can come down and experience and see what it's like. Get in the anatomy lab, see what it's like. Just gives you another perspective. Please understand that before we leave, and again, I'm not trying to leave out, but rush out, but Dr. Smith has from a pamphlet on a program called Finding Your Future, which is a program that put together from June 6th to July 1st, which is a 4-week program on shadowing, where you rotate them on 4 different disciplines that you pick, okay? And it really adds to anybody who's sitting there saying, gosh, I can't get medical experience, it's hard for me to find, and this particular, if you will, rotation, it's non-credit, non-cost. But it's really a rotation that's had a lot of positive feedback from students that's really entreed them into the interview process, where they can resource some of those experiences that they've had and use that to their advantage in the interview if questions come up about medical experience. So you can certainly see him. He has the pamphlet, and he is kind of the gatekeeper of the individuals who might want to apply to this program. So let me just throw that out for you. And like I said, it's from June 6th to July 1st. And generally it's for rising seniors who need that medical experience so that you can add it to that interview, and obviously hopefully will be coming up next year.
Let me just emphasize that I did send an email out here, I think this week, I believe, no, last week, about the Finding Our Future. So did everybody get that? If you didn't, let me know and I'll make sure you get that information. But Dr. Stallworth has agreed to allow 6 students from Clemson to be admitted to this experience. So
we have kind of 20 slots. We have 6 from Clemson, 6 from USC, 2 from Wofford, 2 from Furman. And again, that kind of goes back to, you know, numbers games of applications and size of school, etc.
So if you would follow my directions in the email for submitting your application if you're interested in that internship.
I can add one small variation on that, because I know you're looking at each other and going, gosh, there's 30 of us here and you're only getting this many slots from Clemson. But if you're not able to get the type of shadowing you want, you can often go to your hospital, because if you don't live near Columbia where you can come in the summer, or you live wherever you live, you can go as a volunteer at your hospital. That will allow you the same training in patient privacy, making sure that you don't have communicable diseases. And even though you generally think of volunteers as either being the 14-year-olds or the 70-year-old ladies, the hospitals are happy to have volunteers in other areas. And if you wanted to volunteer in OBGYN through the hospital, we can arrange that. I mean, you can volunteer with our department. You know, we sometimes have to have some contact, or volunteer services will contact us. But that's a way that you can get a little bit of experience. I know